Hi guys, my name is Anita Orubele and I am a mom and lifestyle vlogger. Today's video is going to be very different from the videos that I usually post on my channel because this video is in response to the current incidents and ongoings that are going on in my country, Nigeria. My whole family is there. It's my husband and I are from there. That's my son's country, and there's an outcry and there's rage and there's turmoil and protests. If you're on social media at all or if you follow the news, you've probably come across a term called endsars with the hashtag endsars. There is pretty much what I will call a revolution that is currently occurring in Nigeria by the youth of the country. They've been protesting for a while, and I'll just say that it's gained momentum, like serious momentum, over the past few weeks, and everybody is doing everything in their power to support the cause, to spread the word, to inform people, and to support the movement, which is to end police brutality in the country, specifically through the disbandment of a police division called SARS. SARS stands for Special Anti-Robbery Squad, and it was set up originally to target armed robbery, cultism, basically acts of violence in Nigeria. Apologies if in this video you see my son coming in and out. I'm his sole caretaker and I'm multitasking at the moment. So this police unit, they've come under the spotlight. They've caught this magnitude of negative attention because of the severity and the consistency of their police brutality, and instead of protecting the country and the civilians, they almost misused their power by extorting, assaulting, wrongfully arresting people, profiling. They would profile people according to how they look. Maybe they have dyed hair or dreadlocks, or you have piercings, or you have tattoos, or you drive a nice car. There are incidents of torture and even killing. It became too much and people are tired, and they've come together. Like, I have never been so proud of being Nigerian. I really wish I was on ground to physically support the movement. It's a beautiful thing to see us Nigerians, especially the youth, come together. We have removed religion, tribalism, all of the things that usually divide us, to come together and speak with one voice, to talk to our leaders who have failed us for the past 60 years. I cannot sit back and tell my children tomorrow that I was not a part of this, and I did not try and lend my own voice and skills towards this cause. Last night I saw that across Nigeria, protesters held night vigils. The videos are across social media of thousands and thousands of people who stayed up all night in cities such as Abuja, Port Harcourt, in Lagos, at the Lekki toll gates. After watching the vigils, I stayed up for a few hours through the night and I started researching these victims of the police brutality. These stories, they need to be told. I got inspired and motivated to create this video and put a spotlight on the victims of SARS and police brutality in Nigeria. This video is not going to highlight all of the victims because the list is long, but what I'm going to do is list out the more recent cases that have kind of led up to this current outcry of the youth of Nigeria. The first victim was a 21-year-old Nigerian footballer by the name of Tiamiyu Kazim, and he was allegedly assaulted and killed by operatives of the SARS unit in Shagamu back in February of 2020. According to stories and sources online, he had just finished training and was with a friend en route to another location, where he stopped and went across the road to get something, to buy something, and his friend was sat in the car. His friend was then accosted by the operatives, who waited until Tiamiyu came back across the road, and then they began to accuse them of being internet fraudsters, in which they put them in a van of theirs and harassed them in the van. While in the van, Tiamiyu had expressed that he was a footballer and he was no way involved or in any kind of internet fraud, and for some reason that led to the operatives or the officers in the van to push him out of the van, where he was then hit and killed by an onward vehicle. His parents were then called to come and collect his dead body. This led to protests by indigents in Shagamu, outraged by this killing of this young footballer that had so much potential. He could have been the next JJ Okocha, Kanu Nwankwo. In fact, he had already been scheduled to travel to Sweden to go for trials to further his career in football. The next victim I want to talk about is Tina EZEKWE. Tina was a 16-year-old secondary school student who was preparing to take her SSC examinations. She was a very gentle, bright, hardworking student who wanted to be a medical doctor. However, her life was cut short back in May of this year, 2020, by a trigger-happy police officer. The police officers were trying to arrest a bus driver. This was in Bariga area of Lagos due to some traffic violation, and there was an alleged gunshot, and this caused people around who were standing around to come and look at what's going on. The police officers got angry and they wanted to disperse the crowd and get the crowd going, and so he was threatening that he was going to shoot. And according to witnesses and Tina's brother in interviews, he shot into the crowd and Tina fell down. The bullet had hit her in one of her thighs and she started shouting. So the brother went to meet the police officer to say, look, you've shot my sister. And apparently the police officer said, it's even good I shot her leg. I will shoot her and I will kill her. And then he told the brother that he shouldn't touch her, that he should leave her there, when the brother had tried to pull her out and get her some help. Apparently the police officer shot again on the floor, according to eyewitnesses, and the brother ran. So they left Tina there, yelling in pain and crying, scared and shouting on the streets of Bariga, until the police officer left the scene, where the crowd now dragged her and carried her to the hospital. The first hospital refused to take her, and they took her to a general hospital. She needed blood transfusions. 2 days later, she passed away. According to neighbors, she was a very hardworking girl. She had a bright future ahead of her. She was an obedient child who never looked for trouble. She always worked with her mom at the market. Her death caused a lot of unrest. It got a lot of attention on social media with the hashtag Justice for Tina. The next victim of Nigeria's police brutality that I want to speak on was a 20-year-old aspiring musician by the name of Daniel CHIBUIKE DOMINIC, aka Sleek. This happened in Port Harcourt back in September of 2019. According to onlookers and eyewitnesses, CHIBUIKE was with some of his friends standing outside a hotel trying to get transportation to a particular destination. Him and his friend were unarmed and for no incriminating reasons at all were approached by 2 armed police officers who wanted to begin interrogating them, and out of sheer fear for their lives they decided to take off in a run. And apparently the police officers started to yell, thief, thief, oh thief. And another police officer of a supermarket who was armed spotted them running and decided to shoot. CHIBUIKE was hit by a bullet and was taken to the police station by the police officers, who were then directed to take him to a hospital where he died en route. So he even died before even receiving help or attention from a hospital. There was a very heartwarming video I saw online of his father crying and yelling and asking for justice. This boy had not done anything wrong and his life was cut short by our Nigerian police force. The next victim I want to talk about is that of 36-year-old KOLADE Johnson, who was killed on the 19th of March 2019 in Mangoro bus stop in Lagos State. He was a graduate of the University of Benin and he had a wife and a child. He was the only son of his parents, who was a lover of sports and decided that evening to go and watch a football match in one of the Premier League viewing centers. While he was there, they heard a commotion going on outside and him and his friend decided to go outside to watch. According to eyewitnesses and the victim of the commotion that was going on, he was a young man who was attempting to board a bus. He had dreadlocks and was stopped by some SARS operatives. While he was trying to find out from the officers why they were holding him, an assault began and he began to yell for help. While KOLADE and his friend, who he was with in the viewing center, were one of the people that came out to see what was happening. His friend, who is the main eyewitness to this, said that KOLADE didn't even say a word. He was the one that spoke to the officers, trying to intervene, or I don't know what he was trying to do. It did not specify in this article I was reading, but apparently upon him speaking to the police officer shot 2 shots towards them, and KOLADE was killed in cold blood, murdered by the Nigerian police force. He had just come back from South Africa, where he went to raise some money as an aspiring musician, and his plans was to open a music studio, and he was trying to get himself on his feet. In December of 2019, another yet again trigger happy police officer shot and killed a 21-year-old graduate by the name of MUSAAB SAMANI. He was a recent graduate of computer science from a school in India and had just recently returned from India a few months prior to that, and had started a job working with a company that produces and manufactures rice. MUSAAB SAMANI was working this day, and he went to go deliver some rice to a market. This happened in Kano State. Upon leaving the market, he had an altercation with a tricycle driver who had hit his car, and they got into an argument. If you live in Nigeria, you know these kind of things are very regular because of how the roads are. So the driver hit his car and they started arguing amongst themselves. They resolved the situation, and he was about to leave the location. Out of nowhere, a police officer that was guarding a nearby bank came to the scene and shot Samani in cold blood. He was left on the floor. There's some very horrible pictures online of him on the floor in cold blood. The next victim is that of a man named CHIMA IKWUNADO, who was arrested back in December 2019. He was a mechanics auto repairman who was arrested with 3 of his friends or colleagues. They were driving a vehicle against traffic, so it was a traffic violation arrest that was made to begin with. CHIMA was extorted by the police of 93,000 naira. Upon getting to the police station, they were later accused of armed robbery and stealing the vehicle in which they were arrested in. They protested and argued against the police officers, saying that no, that they were just taking the car on a test drive and it belongs to one of their clients. The clients came by, and after proving that the vehicle belonged to him, was allowed to leave with the vehicle. However, the men remained in custody. They were then accused of being members of cultism, in which case they were tortured and beaten and hung upside down and flogged with machetes, sticks by the police force in an attempt for them to admit that they were cultist members, in which case they did not. A few days after they were arrested, they were sent to court, and the courts ordered the release of the 4 men, stating that they had no evidence against them, that they were armed robbers or cultists. The men had sores, they had cuts and bruises and injuries all over their bodies as a result of them being brutally tortured in detention. After the men's release, CHIMA was nowhere to be found, and the police force apparently tried to lie to say that he had run away. However, the truth came out and they found his body. This is such a sad story. I also read in one report that his legs were broken, his body was destroyed. He left a pregnant wife to mourn for him, an innocent man tortured in such a horrible way. It's a very, very sad story. Very sad. The next and final victim that I want to talk about is that of OGAH Jumbo. OGAH Jumbo was a family man, and he was based in Abuja. His wife was a school teacher and they had multiple children. On the day of OGAH Jumbo's death, him and his wife and his children were in a car on their way to drop off their kids in school. En route to dropping off their children, OGAH Jumbo had made an illegal turn. After the traffic violation, he was stopped abruptly by police officers, in which he explained to them that he was in a rush and that could he please be let off, he needs to get to the office. The police officers got angry. I guess it led to a verbal argument where they tried to open his door, dragged him out of the vehicle and started to beat him. They beat him up and they ended up dragging him on the ground all the way from the junction to the police station. I'm not sure of the distance. This beating occurred in front of his wife, in front of his children, who to this day remain traumatized seeing their father in that state, beaten up, harassed by the police, the same police that are supposed to be around to protect them. Upon going to the police station, his injuries and blood loss were so much that he lost his life. Apparently his nails had also come off the fingers. I don't know if further torturing went on in the police station, but this incident ultimately led to Oga Jumbo's death. Once again, to what extent justice can be served for this, I don't know. To end this vlog, I just want to make a few points from my own perspective on what's going on in Nigeria. I touched on this angle because this could happen to any of us, guys. This could be our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, our children. None of us are safe at this point from the Nigerian police force. These things have been going on for years and years and years. These victims that I've mentioned are just a handful compared to so many victims and stories I've read. How the Nigerian police have taken their destinies away from them in an untimely, horrific way. It is unfair. And there is need for change. Enough is really enough. While these protests are going on, it is our duty to expose them to the world. Maybe the UN can intervene and demand change for us, citizens of Nigeria. In closing, I just want to say that I know that not all of these police officers are bad. There are always a few bad apples in any force that exists in the world, not only Nigeria. I've also come across videos of the conditions that these police officers live in police barracks. I tell you that even prisons in the US are better. I've seen write-ups and lists of police salaries going as low as 50,000 naira a month. That is not even up to $150 a month. And these are family men with wives and children. In closing, I just want to say that I hope the revolution that we have been praying for has finally come. I just want to say thank you from my heart to all the protesters that have put themselves in the front line in Nigeria to fight for this cause. I want to thank you for your courage, for your resilience, your passion. I'm going to leave the links below of organizations that people are making donations to support these protests. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this has been informative and helpful to some, as well as insightful.